Welcome back to our MLB Power Rankings Week 10 to the Bench Buddies. And it's just me again today. Zach here, gonna be taking you through all 30 teams. As you know, we got a lot of teams moving. Obviously, the Yankees are dominating baseball right now, so stay to the end to see where they rank. But let's get into it here. And at 30th, we got the A's moving down all the way to the bottom. 2-14 in the last 16 kind of gets them down here to the worst hitting team in MLB, and it's finally starting to pay off all those trades that they pulled off last year. The only bright spot is Frankie Montas right now, but he'll probably get dealt around the deadline. Could be sooner, so that's definitely a name to watch come deadline if your team's looking for starting pitching. He's been excellent this year. He's been really the only guy that's kept him in a lot of games. In 6 games this week, they got at Boston, probably at least 2 losses there, and then home against Kansas City, which are some possible winning situations because they're the 29th worst team here, moving past the A's. MJ Melendez and Bobby Witt Jr., they've been playing great ever since they've got called up. Andrew Benintendi, he's been playing good as well. But after that, and him and Salvi as well, this team kind of falls off very hard. There's not too much, power, contact, anything at the bottom of the lineup, and that's kind of why they're struggling here. But they have 6 games this week, tough schedule, 6 road games. Playing San Fran at Oakland, not looking like a promising week for them. 28th, we got the Reds, who were the worst team in baseball by far at one point this year. Now they're moving up here again. The 28th, Hunter Green had a great week last week, 12 innings pitched, 0.75 ERA and 15 Ks. So he's really starting to figure it out there. Tyler Stevenson, though, that's a big loss for them. Their best hitter is out at least a month with a broken thumb. So hopefully a speedy recovery for him. And they have 3 at Arizona, who has been pretty good this year, and 3 at home against Milwaukee. So it's going to be another tough week for them. The Nationals stay put at 27th. Juan Soto's heating up. He hit 285 last week. He's been starting to crush the ball, figure it out. He had a slow start, but, you can thank that to the lockout or, not as much spring training. But this team has been a really good hitting team despite that record. 258 average, second best in the MLB, but the pitching is what's been holding them back from achieving some mediocrity here. This is their bottom 3, but they have 8 games this week. Yes, 8 games with a doubleheader against Philly in Philly. They're going against the 11 game in a row Atlanta Braves have won, and then they got Philly, who's 9-1 in their last 10. So definitely a tough week for the Nats here. 26th, we got the Cubs, and we figured out what Cubs team we're going to get this year. They were, floating around 500 for the first month or so. Then now they've just absolutely fell off a cliff. 6-game losing streak. And when it was getting worse, it got even worse. Swarmer gave up a record-tying 6 home runs in a game, which is an MLB worst. And then I have 7 games this week against the Padres, who were hot, and the Braves, who have 11 wins in a row as well. 25th, got my Tigers moving up here, thanks to in part to, as you saw, teams moving down. The injury bug still hit them hard. The bullpen has been consistently good, and which honestly doesn't surprise me. They have no home runs in their last 8 games. If they want to stay, kind of around a wild card spot, they're only 6 games back heading into this week. And you look at that record and they're 6 games back. Yeah, that's crazy. With everything that's happened with this Tigers team, don't count them out yet. But another breaking news is Eduardo Rodriguez. He's on leave right now for personal reasons. So just another blow to the Tigers pitching rotation. But next man up mentality. And so far the Tigers pitching staff has been really good at that. 24th, we got the Pittsburgh Pirates. Difficult for them to, have a competitive last week. 0-6 against Detroit and Atlanta. They fell off really quick. Last week, I had them as could this be a potential playoff team? Squeaks in or, plays competitive enough baseball. And then immediately that just didn't happen. They have 6 games this week. They have 7 games this week, 4 at St. Louis, and then 3 at home against San Francisco. So tough teams coming in home for the weekend series. But, this Pirates team, they're going to be sellers at the deadline. Dan Vogelbach is a name to remember for that trade deadline. 23rd, we got the Baltimore Orioles moving up 2. They're last place in the AL East, and I think if you put this team in the AL Central, I think they're right around 500. They've been playing some really good baseball. The hitting has been being carried by the outfield. Everyone in the outfield has been hitting well. Adley Rutschman is starting to figure a few things out. And they got 7 games this week in the AL East. It's going to be a tough week for them. 4 in Toronto, so some guys might be out due to COVID protocols. And then 3 at home against Tampa. So it's going to be some competitive series for sure. 22, we got the Colorado Rockies. And this team, we were high on them early, and they started to fall off here, and that's due to in part to pitching. The hitting's been really good for them to keep them in games, but just sometimes you can't give up 8 runs and expect to score 9. And they're also in last place in the tough NL West. Once again, if they were in a slightly easier division, I think this would be an above 500 team. They've been playing really good baseball, but just unfortunately, teams they've been playing early, have been better. They have 6 games against Cleveland and San Diego. And I think if they go 3-3, it's going to be a good week for them. 21st, we got the Mariners moving up, barely. Logan Gilbert, he's been solid, as you see his stats there. And they're, not saying it's bad, but they're 10 games back already in the AL West after a promising, start to the season to Houston. I know that the wild card is, a lot more reachable here, with the extra spot. But Seattle, it seems like they do this every year. Get hot, stay around 500 until the All-Star break and absolutely collapse. I can kind of see it happening again. As this week they do have Minnesota and the Angels coming into town. It always helps to be at home, but those are some tough teams right now. 20th, we got the White Sox. Absolutely falling down here. The most underperforming team in MLB. I mean, that's definitely a fact right now. And I know they're only 4 games under 500, but something needs to change. And I think La Russa getting fired this week, that's probably going to, flip the mojo. They're going to get Tim Anderson back, I believe, by the end of the week. With that 356 average, he's a big bat. 3 against Detroit. They get Lance Lynn back as well tonight. His first start of the year. I don't expect him to go more than 5, 6 max. See how he does. And then they go on the road to Houston for a good weekend series there. And I think, if they can pull off some magic there, go 4-2, 5-1 even is possible. I think, the tide might turn this week and we might see a different White Sox team next week. 19th, we got the Diamondbacks. Ketel Marte has been the bright spot for them so far this year, along with Dalton Varsho. They've been mashing the ball lately, but they're bottom 5 in hitting and pitching outside of those two. And they got 6 games this week, 3 at home against Cincy and 3 against Minnesota. And this team, I think, is doing a lot better than a lot of people thought. Only 4 games behind 500. Moving up 5 spots here, we got the Miami Marlins, only 4 games behind for 500. 18th is pretty good. As you can see at the top there, the lowest ranking has been 23rd, highest has been 17th. And they're staying around here, floating around, possibly squeaking into a playoff spot, playing enough baseball, but they are in a very tough NL East. And unfortunately, they're the team that's going to, struggle against the higher end of these teams. And this week, I think they're going to struggle. On the road, 3 at Philly and 3 against the Mets, who are just absolutely on fire, both these teams. But when Sandy Alcantara pitches, they have a really good chance to win. I mean, look at those stats. 2 earned runs in his last 6 starts. 48 Ks and at least 7 innings pitched. I mean, what more can you ask from the guy? 17th, we've got the Angels going down. Joe Madden firing has led to, not a huge success, but they're 2-16 in their last 18 games. Mike Trout broke out of his slump with a big week, looking at almost 600, average for last week. 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, and 12 at bats because he did have a brief injury for a little bit. But 7 games this week, 2 on the road. In LA against the Dodgers, that'll be a good series. I think, go 1-1 there. That's definitely a good start. And then 5 on the road in Seattle. I think if you get 3 there, it's a successful week. Same put at 16th. We got the Texas Rangers. Marcus Semien, he's been on an absolute tear. Shout out Kobe for dropping him. Let me pick him up and, going off. Martin Perez, he had a rough outing last week, but I expect him to get back on track against the Tigers on Thursday. And, if they can steal a few from Houston, I think, win that 3-game series, go 2-1, and then I ride that momentum in Detroit. This team could possibly be above 500 next week. Speaking of 500, we got the Phillies. Ever since Girardi's firing, this team has played absolutely better under Rob Thompson. They're 9-1 their last 10. And they get 8 games this week. We're going to really see how they can handle, playing every single day, and even 2 games a day. They got easier opponents this week in the NL East, the Marlins, and then 5 at Washington. In this Phillies team, next week they could be around 500 or they could be a lot above 500. We shall see. 14th, we got the Guardians, 10-3 in the last 13. And I think, the AL Central may have 2 teams get in this year. The question is it going to be the Twins, Guardians, White Sox? I mean, maybe my Tigers, because got to throw them in there. But, this Guardians team, no one's talking about them because Jose Ramirez is absolutely carrying this team. Shane Bieber, he's been a beast right now. And, you can't ask much for, these Guardians. 13th staying put, we got the Boston Red Sox. They're 28-16 since May 1st. So if you get rid of, those games before then, this team is one of the hottest teams in baseball. You got a scary lineup, 254 team average, which is 4th best in MLB. And they have 3 against Oakland at home versus should be a really good series this weekend against St. Louis. 12th, we got the Brewers free falling out of the top 10. They're half a game back from the Cardinals for the NL Central. And surprisingly, I thought that would be a lot more because they went into the week half a game ahead for the Cardinals, but they had a struggle week 2. But they're 2-12 in the last 14. And how do you get rewarded with 3 games on the road against the Mets and 3 on the road against the Reds? So it's going to be a rough week to turn it around, but I believe they're going to do that. And speaking of those Cardinals, we have them dropping a spot out of the top 10 to 11. They're a top 5 hitting team this year, but the big question is, can they keep up this performance? I think they can. They won't, go too above and beyond here, but this Cardinals team will compete with the Brewers for that NL Central title this year. 10th, we got the Twins falling a little bit. Joe Ryan scheduled back from the COVID IL. Royce Lewis needs another ACL surgery after tearing it a week ago. And Luis Arraez, had a grand slam yesterday, first of his career, hitting 359 this year. He's been on a, scary, scary tear, and he's not a guy you want to face right now. But they have 6 games this week, all on the road in Seattle and Arizona. And I think a 3-3 week for them is very good. Moving into the top 10, we got the San Francisco Giants. At number 9, we have the San Francisco Giants. 33-26. They swept the Dodgers in a weekend series, 3-0. And the big question was, can they keep up with them? It looks like they can. They're 3.5 back for that NL West lead. But what surprised me the most is they're not, top 5 in any stat category. They're middle of the pack, but they're finding ways to win. And that's all that matters in MLB. Every game matters. They got 6 games this week, 3 at home against Kansas City. Then they hit the road across the country for Pittsburgh. 8th, we got the Braves, the hottest team in baseball, 11 games in a row, 5.5 back still to the Mets for the NL East just because they've been so good as well. But Dansby is having an underrated and great year with a 290 average, 32 RBIs. He could be a potential, all-star game starter just the way he's been playing. But they have 6 road games this week against the Nats and Cubs. And honestly, I could see them having a 17-game win streak just because those teams haven't been good this year. 7th, we got the Rays. Shane McClanahan, obviously speaks for himself. Look at those stats. He's been on a tear this year. He's been the ace, much needed ace as well for that Rays team after a few of their pitchers have been struggling. But some dismal news is Andrew Kitteridge. Means Tommy John, he's out for the year. He's been one of the better bullpen arms they've had in recent years. So that's a big blow to their pen. And they have 6 road games, 3 against the Yankees and 3 at Baltimore. And I think this is a team where you go 3-3 this week. It's a good week. 6th, you get another AL East team. You get the Toronto Blue Jays, Alek Manoah for Cy Young. Possibly. He has a 1.81 ERA, 61 Ks, and he's really stepped it up since last year. We saw a brief preview of what he could do last year, and this year he's went into full form and absolutely took over. And he's been the ace for the Blue Jays this year. Not Barrios, not Ryu, not Kikuchi. It's been Manoah. And honestly, if they didn't call him up last year, I think he would be struggling this year. But it's a good roster move for sure. And I think another huge question mark for the Blue Jays is who is going to be the catcher going forward. Is it going to be Gabriel Moreno? Because he made his MLB debut over the weekend, got his first career hit. It's going to be Alexander Kirk. He's been on a tear. Or it's going to be Danny Jansen when he comes back from the IL. All 3 of these guys have the potential to be a number 1. And I honestly expect one to get dealt possibly. at the deadline, trade one away for maybe a bullpen arm or a starting pitcher or some more depth at a different position for this Blue Jays team, because they're going to be making a run for the World Series this year. Fifth, we got the Astros dropping a spot. And, honestly, it's nothing on them, but there's just been a hotter team that's moved ahead of them. Jordan, he's been absolutely mashing the ball this year. If Aaron Judge isn't doing what he's doing, I think Jordan has a case for MVP. JV, he might have another Cy Young as well. And Alex Bregman is a name that you should keep an eye on, because he's not, tearing the cover off the ball or anything, but he's having a decent year. And if he really, picks up his play and plays how he always has, this Astro team is going to kick into another gear. Fourth, we have the Dodgers with their lowest ranking to date. And that's in part to getting swept by the Giants last week, as I mentioned before. Walker Buehler is also out for almost 2 months with his elbow, but Kershaw returned, so that's a glimmer of good news there. And there are only 5 games this week to rest up, get a few days off, 2 at home against the Angels and home against the Guardians as they're coming into town. Padres are making the jump up to the top 3. Machado has been tearing the cover off the ball as well. He, kind of no one saw it coming. I mean, he's been always good, but with adding Tatis soon, hopefully, he's getting his CAT scan this week. Machado and Tatis, I mean, that's going to be scary. Who are you going to pitch to if Machado keeps hitting like this? They're a top 5 team in pitching as well. Sean Manaea has been a great acquisition from the Oakland A's, trading away a few pieces there. Blake Snell, if he can pick up, he'll be good. But Joe Musgrove, the guy who threw the franchise's first no-hitter, he is leading the MLB in ERA with a 1.5. He's been really good this year, and he has a case to, be an all-star game starter as well. At 2, we got the first New York team, the New York Mets. They have a huge division lead of 5.5 games against Atlanta. The scorching Braves are coming for them. But the biggest thing that you got to take away from last week is Pete Alonso and Starling Marte both getting hurt in the same game, both looking like they could be heading to the IL. And they're playing Saturday and Sunday night, which is a huge sigh of relief. Maybe it really is the Mets year this year, because, it seems like something like that happens and then their just whole season tanks. But they got lucky. Both these guys are healthy, and both of those guys are just a huge part to this team. And at 1, we get the New York Yankees, the best start in franchise history for the Yankees through 60 games, 44-16. And knowing the Yankees, that's some feat. And you can thank Aaron Judge for that one. 24 home runs, a 318 average, and 48 RBIs. I mean, he's almost getting, a home run every other game. An RBI is almost guaranteed every game. And a hit is almost guaranteed every game. I mean, this dude's been absolutely going off, and he's the front runner for MVP right now. Stanton, he's been, hitting the cover off the ball, as you can see there, 119.8 mile per hour home run. I think that might be the hardest hit ball in StatCast era. Matt Carpenter, he's hit 6 home runs in 10 games played, or 10 at bats with the Yankees, and I think that's a franchise record as well. And they got a tough week this week, though. 3 at home against Tampa Bay and 3 in Toronto. And, we're going to really see what the Yankees are made of against the AL East this week in a tough week. But that's going to be it for the video today. If you liked it, make sure you guys hit that like button. Comment below which teams you could see rising or falling this upcoming week in our next video. Or if you guys think the team should have been higher or lower, let me know as well in the comments below. But remember to hit that subscribe button, as we're doing that giveaway at 500 subscribers. But until the next time, Bench Buddies are out.